Well, we're going to go ahead and get things started. So once again, thank you all so much for joining. We changed up the format a little bit on the last call, and I think it worked well, so we're going to try it again for this call. So the way the structure is going to work is I'm going to start walking through all of the new features that we've shipped in Keeper over the last month. But then at the break, before I go on to the next feature, I'm going to pause and allow anyone who has a question to ask their questions, and so I'll answer them. So feel free to ask the questions as they come up. Please drop those in the Q&A portion at the bottom of the conversation, or bottom of the Zoom bar, rather than in the chat, so I can make sure that I address them. All right, and with that, I'm going to go ahead and get things started. We've got a bunch of updates here to share, so super excited about that. All right, so first things first, it is a little thing, but there is more of this to come. We have made some actual hopefully good UI upgrades. So we cleaned up all of these tabs to make them buttons. And then we also cleaned up the sort of add remove columns UI. So we're working on this, have a few more updates to come. We want to make sure that as we continue to ship new functionality to make Keeper more powerful, we don't, in the process, make it so clunky that you can't use the thing. So there are other tweaks and polishes you'd like to see as well. We do appreciate that feedback here too, and definitely take it into consideration. All right. Well, now I'm going to go ahead and dive into a close and talk about receipts. So first things first, receipts is now officially live and generally available. So it is out of beta as of September 1st. So thank you all so much for sticking with us through the beta, and I think you will find it is well worth the wait. Okay, so what new things did we ship as we released out of beta and continue to improve it? So first things first, we added the ability to, put this one up here, match payments to create new invoice payments or bill payments as payments to open invoices or open bills. So if your client sends you a check that you wrote, or your client sends you a check that a customer wrote to them, if they put that in here, you can create a payment or bill payment accordingly. So here, for example, we have a payment, it looks like, from Jim Stevenson to Democo. And so we can just grab Jim Stevenson here, identify this as a check. Whoops. Go ahead and refresh the page here. And go ahead and set the payment date as February 28th, 2023. We're going to deposit this to undeposited funds. And then we're going to browse any open invoices from Jim. And lo and behold, we have one for $21.65. So we're going to select that. Identify the payment amount here. Make sure that we are applying that payment to the open invoice. And then we can just post the transaction. That will create an invoice payment that is linked to the invoice. And then you can look out for the deposit when that comes through as well. And speaking of deposits, you can also now post transactions as deposits. So this is not a good example here, but you can see you can create new deposits. So if you want to do sort of simple cash coding based on checks, for example, you can do that too and create deposits out of Keeper receipts. All right, and the last set of transaction improvements I am super excited to talk about is our new, very much still in beta functionality, which is our AI journal entries. So for the folks who are in the beta, you will now see a new transaction type option, which is journal entry here. And the purpose of this, this transaction type is, and what we're trying to do here with AI journal entries, is to allow you to create transactions based on documents that are not just as simple as a simple bill or invoice or receipt that you may receive. So this could be something complicated like a table. This could be a payroll run. This could be a closing document that you get if you work with real estate agents, or anything that you have like a document that's not just like, here's the date and here's the amount, but there's actually some logic or some places you have to look things up, where normally you have to pull the invoice or you pull the document open on one screen, you pull QuickBooks open on another screen and manually write the journal entry. So AI journal entries is here to replace that process. And basically the way it works is you upload the screenshot or PDF or spreadsheet or whatever it is that you want to turn into a journal entry. And then you tell our AI what you want that journal entry to do. So in this case, this is a screenshot of a series of payments that we got charged for in Rippling. And then we tell the screenshot, we tell AIJEs what to do with it. So if it says device purchases, it should go to computer's original cost. If it says EOR subscriptions, it should go to payroll processing fees and so on and so forth. And then last but not least, you also select reference transactions. So reference transactions are basically a way of saying this is a prior example with an attachment of how I did this right in the first place. I think the interesting thing to take away from this sort of series of inputs, so you have the statement, you have the instructions, and then you have the sort of reference material. It's very similar to how you would train a new employee to do this job. So I think the right way to think about AIJEs is it is a sort of little new employee, very small in scope right now, but growing over time, that can do this job for you. And so explain to them the way you would process this document, and AIJEs will do that nonetheless. Once you've done that, you just click generate. I've actually already generated this one ahead of time, but you can see here what I told the AI to do was ignore anything with where the payment type is payroll, global payroll, or spend management, because those get posted via another journal entry from Rippling automatically. So it ignored all of those lines. And then it was really just working with these three lines at the bottom. We've got the 2092 for 1Password, the 7335 for Google Workspace, and then the 246.84 for subscription fees to Rippling proper. So with that in mind, we have we asked the JE, or we asked the AI to create the JE, and lo and behold, that's what it did. So it took 1Password and posted it to software, got the amount right, and then it credited the checking account that it was credited from. Same thing for the Google Workspace reseller charge, also posted that to software, got the amount right. And then last but not least, it took the charge that was to Rippling and instead posted that to payroll processing fees, which is what our instruction said, got the amount right, and then, of course, created the credit as well. And so then the last thing you need to do here is just post the transaction, just like you would post any other document that comes in through Keeper Receipts. This is very much still in beta, so thank you for everyone who has signed up for the beta. We are letting people in very slowly. We are testing use cases very deliberately. And one thing I do want to be clear about, we did not create this on your own data. So you are not like opted into us using all your data. We are using our own separate proprietary data. There will be ways to opt in if you want to help us out with that, but no one has opted in. We are not training on any customer data. And that's the way we roll. So we're not going to like surreptitiously change this in the future. We're very much opt in. We understand the responsibility you have to your clients, and we don't want to do anything to come between you and that. Okay, so those are some of the major upgrades to receipts, but there are also some minor upgrades that I'll just touch on really quickly here. First is we added some new merge tags just to make it easier to introduce your clients to Keeper Receipts. And we also added a new intro email. So this merge tag will auto fill in the particular receipts email that you have for this particular client. It'll fill in your phone number that the client can use to text you any receipts. And then it'll also give them links to download the mobile app where they can upload receipts as well. Of course, like all templates, you can come in and edit this or use the merge tags wherever you feel appropriate. Okay. One more thing I don't have a good example to show, but I'll just talk about it, is now if you split a document, so if you have like a client who uploads 5 receipts all in a single PDF, if you now split that document into 5 separate transactions in Keeper, we will automatically rescan all 5 of those documents, so you don't need to go manually hand keying in data. And last but not least, one minor upgrade to rules is you can now set default payment terms for bills in vendor rules. Okay, and with that, we have made it through the series of receipts upgrades. I'm going to pause now. I'm going to turn to the Q&A, the chat, and see if anyone has any questions. Okay, Amy asked, when will we be able to create invoices through the receipts section? The answer is hopefully very soon. I believe sales receipts is coming out in the next week or 2 weeks, and then invoices should follow shortly thereafter. Okay, all right. Great. Well, those are all the questions on receipts. So one more. Rachel asked, will AI journal entries always be part of the receipts subscription? It is for now, and it's definitely not cheap to run these AI queries. So it is, at least for now, for the indefinite future. But definitely our focus first and foremost through the beta is making sure that we add good value and make this an important, valuable tool in the tool chain. And then we'll figure out where it should sit in the app long term. But for now, receipts is the current plan. Yausi asked, will we be able to use bundle items when creating sales receipts or invoices? I'm pretty sure the answer is yes. Okay. All right. Well, those are all the receipts questions. So I am going to now move on to our next set of features, which is some upgrades to our reviews. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and toggle back here to June 2022. One of the downsides working with demo data is some of my closes are more filled out than others. Okay, so first and foremost, big upgrade to the P&L. I know this was long awaited. So glad we finally got this out the door. And that is now we have the ability to filter the P&L by class and by location. So for example, if you want to just review a P&L for just admin for the last 3 months or for all months, you can do that here. It'll automatically filter to just show anything that's in admin or any classes that you select here. And this will save and persist to the report itself. So you can create one P&L that's like for all of the classes, one P&L that's just for admin, one P&L that's for admin, and I think we have like animals in some of our other classes, so admin and animals if you want. But the basic idea is you can create as many of these now as you want. And you can use these both in the final review as well as in management reporting. Okay, next is speaking of class and location. This is relevant only for the new clients that you add. But now if you have clients with class and location, we will automatically enable class and location where it's appropriate. So previously you had to go to client settings, turn on class, turn on location where it was applicable. But now we will just automatically turn those settings on for you if you add a new client that has class enabled. Okay. And then last but not least, we have made some big improvements to the UI of the Prepared 1099s report. So previously everything was a column, and sometimes that could have meant that like you had to like scroll to the right to access your files. And so we wanted to just consolidate things, clean things up a little bit. And so now all of the vendor details are right here in the vendor column, and it's easy to see. We'll highlight in purple if anything is missing. And then if you click this, you can edit everything right here from a single modal, and then everything else stays the exact same. So all the functionality is still there. We just wanted to clean up the UI a little bit, make it a little easier to read through the report. Okay, all right, and now I will pause to answer some questions. Okay, so one question here, is the class and location available for 0-2? I believe not yet, but I will have to check with our engineering team and get back to you. Jamie asked 1099 INT or DIV. So to elaborate, The 1099 ints and divs have a $10 IRS threshold instead of a $600 IRS threshold. And so that is not super presently compatible with the Prepared 1099 report. This is something that we are aware of, and we're working on some big upgrades over the course of the next couple of months, well in time for 1099 season to accommodate 1099 INTs and divs. Des asked, where can we see the EIN that was entered in QuickBooks? We used to be able to make sure they were the same in QBO and Keeper. So we actually automatically sync these now, so they're always the same. This will automatically update if it's the, like if you enter an update in QuickBooks, it will sync this to Xero or to Keeper and vice versa. Okay. All right, next I'm going to talk about some reporting. And so I'm going to switch back to the April 2023 close. All right. And the big one, its moment is here. We finally have shipped budget versus actuals. This was after we shipped receipts and archiving clients. This was our #1 most requested feature for the longest of time. So finally, it's here. The budget versus actuals functionality pulls from the budgets that you create in QuickBooks. So you do still have to create those in QuickBooks, which means you need at least a Plus subscription. But once you have that, then you can build your budget versus actuals reporting here in Keeper. Some of this looks very similar to the way that things are built out in QuickBooks. So here I'm looking at the fiscal year to date versus the fiscal year 2023 budget. And you've got actuals versus budget, actuals, budgets, and actual versus budget. But we did add this one new feature that I think is super important for some clients, and that is the ability to compare against the full year-to-date budget. So, or sorry, the full year budget. So for example, let's say we've got advertising here and we spent $30,000 and the full year budget's 42, but we're sort of halfway through the year. And so we're expecting we only should have spent 26. So what we can do is you can see, okay, here's our budget versus actual. So we've spent actually $3,000 more than we were budgeted to have spent through this point in the year, through this point in the budget. But now we actually have the ability to say, okay, we're actually still under budget for the full year. And you can see all of this on one report. So previously, if you wanted to do this in QuickBooks, you would need to create two separate budgets, one with the sort of straight line amortization of all of your expenses, and one with all of the expenses in December, so you could compare against the full year expectation. But now you can just compare the full year budget right here. And then we also have this little graphical indicator, so you can see how close you are to maxing out that budget. Okay. Then the next feature I'm excited to talk about, this is another long-awaited feature, is in the statement of cash flows. You can now come in here and edit the explanations. So we have custom explanations built out based on the sort of type of the account. So if AR goes up, that means we have more invoices outstanding. So that's a use of cash. But if you want to either one, explain it differently from the way we've explained it, or to get much deeper into the logic of like the specific thing. So employee cash advances, instead of this being like we purchased an asset, you can say we loaned Bob some money so he can make rent. So you can be much more explicit. And my hope is that in being more explicit about some of these explanations, you can actually help your clients understand the purpose and the value of the statement of cash flows. Okay, so that's it for reporting. We'll now open things up to the Q&A. Jamie asked, is budget reporting available in the close? Not currently, it is only available in the reporting page. Kelly asked, will there be a future rollout to be able to add budgets to Keeper from alternative sources like Excel files or other software and not just QuickBooks? So definitely we'll add support for Xero. I can't say we have something like this on the roadmap. I can't say it's an ever. Of course, we listen to our customers when people ask for stuff, but it's not something that is on the immediate roadmap. Okay, Sonia asked, can budgets be split by class? I do not believe so, but that definitely is something that it would make sense to add. Des asked, is it possible to rearrange or remove columns in the budget actuals report? So it is possible to remove the sort of full year versus full year budget, but otherwise it's not possible to remove or rearrange the columns. Des also asked, can you bring in the prior year's budget to actual with the current year report? So presumably that's like if you wanted to do the, like we're in fiscal 23, if you wanted to show fiscal 2022 versus the fiscal 2022 budget. Not currently a way to do that. Definitely something we could work on. Okay. Kelly asked, is there commenting for the other reports like the income statement and the balance sheet? Is there commenting for the other reports like the income statement and the balance sheet similar to the cash flow statements? Okay. Sort of, it's footnotes. So if you wanted to add a footnote to a particular account, you can add a footnote here. You're also able to add footnotes in your month-end review as you are basically like reconciling an account. If you see something weird or like a check hasn't cleared, you can add that in as a footnote and that will show up on the balance sheet in your reports. Same thing when you're going through the P&L and the balance sheet in the reports. Actually, let me just show, I'll explain what this means. So you've got your footnotes here and they'll show up at the bottom. Go ahead and go back to my slightly more populated close. So when you're reconciling an account here, you can actually leave a footnote on this account. And so if you wanted to leave a footnote here in Chase checking, you can say, okay, the Chase checking is negative because we have 100 checks that are like in the register or in the ledger, but not in the statement yet. And so you can leave that as a footnote while you're reconciling or in your P&L or balance sheet. So while you're sort of reviewing the P&L, if you notice something that you want to tell your clients about, you can add a footnote here too. And those will all pull into your management reporting when you go to deliver reporting. Okay, Yausi asked, will there be a feature for bulk invoice creation? I am not sure what that means, so I can't say it's on the immediate roadmap, but if you want to elaborate or make a candy, we can definitely review it. Okay. An anonymous attendee asked, how can we add reports to the financial package? I don't see the budget versus actuals under my clients. If you go to reporting, there should be an add report button at the bottom here, and then budget versus actual should be an option. Yausi asks, will we or our clients be able to drill down on reports? So presumably this means adding the sort of P&L drill down into that we have on the close page into management reporting. It's not something we currently support, but definitely something that we are evaluating adding into the portal. Jamie asked, back to 1099s, are the collection of W8s coming? It is something we are evaluating. So for other folks in the room, W8s are the international equivalent of W9s. So it's definitely something that we're working on. Okay, Jeremiah asks, is there a way to customize permissions on the manager roles in practice settings, manage users? I'm not sure I understand necessarily. If the question is like, can you titrate what a manager is able to do? The answer is no. But so managers essentially are a role between standard users and admins. And so they can do things like, you can do things like restrict which clients they have access to. They don't have access to practice settings. They see a restricted view of timer data that's just the clients that they have access to. And they can see all tasks in their task list rather than just the tasks assigned to them. but there is not a way to sort of change that set beyond that. Okay, is there a way on the P&L to compare the current month with the same month of the prior year? There is. So if we are in June of 2022, for example, we wanted to compare against June of 2021, we would just set the date range to 1 month. You don't have to, but that might make more sense. And then you turn on a custom column here, and then you have prior period. So that's June of 2022 versus June of 2021. And again, we can also turn on dollar and percent changes as well. An anonymous attendee asked, is there a way to default the date on the cash flow to so it defaults to from January to the current month? I believe the answer is no. I definitely think that's something we should support. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So, oh, no, there is. Yeah, sorry. So I was wrong. We do have the thing. So yeah, you just choose calendar year to date, and that would be January to present. Okay, Rachel asked for W-9s. Will there be a column to track dates of when you receive the W-9s? You can know when you need to request new updated W-9s. It's an interesting idea. Not something we support today. Definitely something that we could add. But yeah, super interesting idea. Sonia looks like is having some questions about budgets by class. So Sonia, if you want to just reach out to us over email, either help@keeper.app, or if you have a CSM, email your CSM directly and we'll take a closer look, or just jump into the chat and we'll take a closer look there too. Eileen asks, is there a way to have top 10 customers and vendors by spend year to date and by month? Not currently, although we are investigating some future improvements to the top 10 vendors and customers reports. Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and head that on over to timers, our next series of improvements. And here, first thing is, some of you may not notice this. Some of you may have noticed it like instantly as soon as you went to the timers page. We significantly improved the performance of the timers page load time for larger firms. So for firms that add tens of thousands of timers, this page should load much quicker. So apologies for how long that took to improve, but should be much better now. And then the second is we also added the ability to add rates to cost rates to individual employees. So you can say, okay, Ben cost me $50 an hour, like Brett cost me $70 an hour, and so on and so forth. And what that lets you do is when you come back to your client reporting, we now have a profitability report. So you can see who are your most and least profitable clients, not only by revenue or effective hourly rate, but also by cost. So if you have really high cost labor servicing one client versus really low cost labor servicing one client, this is a good way of seeing what your actual gross margin is on any client live in real time, or sliced and diced across whatever date range you want to assess that on. And then, of course, you can drill down here to view your timers and see whose time is responsible for this cost. Okay, Misty asked, how do we get timers? Timers is a function of Keeper Premium. So if you want to enable Keeper Premium, just jump into the chat and we will get that set up in your account. Another attendee asked, are rates viewable by everyone? No. So the settings themselves, these rates, the settings directly are only viewable by admins and super admins. And then the profit by month report is only available to admins, super admins, and then managers for the clients that they have access to. Okay, so that's timers. And last but not least, one more thing, excited to talk about, super minor, but could definitely help some folks with their columns on the management reports. And so that's, we added the ability to add multi-select properties here on the management report. So if you previously had like a bunch of checkboxes for different service tiers or different services you provided for a client, you can now put those all in a single multi-select. And then you can just say, okay, which of my clients do I do income tax for? And then instantly have the options available there. So this is available for much other things other than different service lines, but this is definitely one of the ones that I think it will be helpful for. All right. Well, that is it for the regularly scheduled update. So now I'm going to pause and see if anyone has any other questions that that we didn't cover in one of the previous feature updates. Okay. Jamie asked, client property types are dollar and percent coming soon. It is definitely something that we are working on. I don't have an exact date for that. Courtney asked, when will you be able to edit times? You can edit these times today. So now, yeah, you just click the thing that you want to edit. So for example, if you wanted to edit your start time, you just click this and then change the date here. Okay. Misty asked, services, is that an add column? Yeah, so this would be a column that you would add. I added this. This is not like instantly available for everyone. So this is something that you would add in your practice settings. So you go to your all client settings, properties, and then you would add a property here, and then the type would be multi-select. And so here you would say services, service options, and then you would add the options here. Adrian asked, will there be a keeper certification program in the future? We are working on it. Shayna here on this call as well is responsible for that. So it's definitely coming. We want to make sure that we get a good first version out the door. But yes, we are working on a certification program. Jamie asked, in final review, is year-to-date coming? Definitely something we should add. So yeah, we'll get back to you on that one. Okay, Lauren asked, I'm pretty new. Can you go back to timers? Is that already available? Yeah, so once again, timers is available if you're in Keeper Premium. If you are not, if you're in Keeper Premium, you can enable time tracking by going to practice settings, time tracking, then enable time tracking from here. If you are not in Keeper Premium, you can enable that by jumping into the chat and shooting us a message. An attendee asked, how does the timer here compare to the timer via QuickBooks? Does that sync with QuickBooks as well to create invoices? It does not currently sync to QuickBooks. I think that is one of the most requested features of time tracking. So definitely something that we are evaluating. But otherwise, at high level, the way time works is you can start a timer here. If you are in a client, it will automatically pre-fill to the client. So you can see we're in the April 2023 close. It automatically fills you out to demo co in April 2023. You can also turn on notifications in the system so that if you're tracking time with one client and you switch to another client's page, it will notify you to start a new timer. Okay, Sherelle asked, is there any way the green bar for close progress, can the green bar not be, okay. The green bar not be affected by non-closing activity. Okay, so the issue here for some folks is basically you can see this client here. Let me actually turn on some non-closing sections. Okay, so here you can see Canada is great, has a fully completed close, and is done. Here you can see Blue Light Holdings has a fully completed close, but does not have the same green highlighting. So the way the green highlighting works is it's like you have done every single thing that's important for this client. And the reason that Blue Light doesn't have it is because Blue Light does have one overdue payroll task. So this is something that was a design decision made very early in the days of Keeper. And definitely, I think this is something we could expose as a setting so that if you want it to work this way, where it's like, it is notifying you that there is something that is not complete with this client, then we could add that. But we could also enable it so that the green setting is more controllable for folks who want to run it the other way. Okay. Katie asked, a couple of months ago, we showed an upgraded client portal experience that was currently in beta. Is there an anticipated date for when this will go live? Yes, I think Thursday, but if not very soon. So just to recap here, the new client portal experience been fully upgraded. It's a much more modern, polished experience on the client side, and on the bookkeeper side, it has advantages too. Like you can see the exact dates and times when people responded. You can see if you have multiple contacts in the portal, which contact responded to which question. A lot of other minor upgrades and major upgrades that sort of come together to be a sort of really big improvement to the client portal. If you, some of you are already in the beta. Basically, the beta means you can enable this for your account, but not that it automatically gets enabled for your account. So in your practice settings, if your portal does not look like this already, you can enable it by going to your client portal, branding, and then there should be an option here that's upgrade to V2. If you don't see that, you should see it, I believe, on Thursday. And then we're going to give everyone a couple of months so they can play with this, like get used to it, get comfortable with the change management before it rolls out. So it will be available to anyone who wants to opt it in, but it will be available. And then there will be a couple month window where folks can sort of dip their toes in the water, get ready to for the change before making the change, before we roll it out across all firms. Yasi asked, will there be an internal note or message section in Keep Receipts? Definitely something that we do want to add. So adding sort of commenting functionality inside of a receipt as well. Okay. Attendee asked, any future for QBOA or for a firm account like QBOA? It is not something that we are opposed to. It is just not something that we have gotten around to yet. So I'm sure there is some future at some point, but I can't say it's on the immediate roadmap. Mary asked for me to show again how I added the services column. So if you want to create a new client property, you do that by going to your practice settings, all client settings, properties, and then add property. From here, if you wanted to do the multi-select option for services, you would choose multi-select, name this services. We already have a property by that name. So services, and then you would choose the options you want to include here. Once you have created that property, so again, I've already created services, you can add that from the add remove columns button here. And so here we can just search for services, enable services, and then you'll see that show up here. And then from here, if you wanted to create a view, for example, of only your income tax clients, you can do that and then save that as a new view. Jan asked, will there be the ability to change colors for different client reports? Okay, so right now, management reports are all governed by a single set of reports, report colors. That's sort of basically your firm's branding. So I assume the question here is to allow each management report to have your client's branding on it. Would definitely make sense. So what I would suggest is add this as a candy, and then we will prioritize it and get working on it. Okay, Des asked, I may have just answered this. It's okay, happy to be redundant. When will the new view of the client portal show when replying back and forth with clients? I remember saying you saying it'll look more like a messenger view. Okay, all right. So I'll just I'll hop into a client here and sort of explain. So yeah, definitely it still maintains the same concept of like there are different questions about different topics. So each transaction question is still a different question. But here, for example, if you look at a particular transaction question, you have the sort of questions asked and answered over time. And so it looks more like a sort of like chat feed. So you can see who asked and who answered the questions. One important thing to note here is you can see here this says keeper bookkeeping. So one new option we have in the new version of the portal is to actually say your team members' names. So if you want this to feel super personalized and you want each individual person to be able to like it'll say like Ben responded in the portal or Shana responded in the portal or whichever one of your bookkeepers responded in the portal. You can do that here. This is for your team side. But by default, it will still say keeper bookkeeping or whatever the name of your practice is. The reason for that is that way you can, but that's probably inbound questions and files. Okay, yeah. So there's a setting here, show firm name for all responses. So basically, if this is checked, and it is checked by default when you upgrade, it'll still look like your firm, just like high level, keeper bookkeeping, or whatever your firm's name is, responded to all questions. If you disable this, it will say Shana from keeper bookkeeping answered questions. That said, on your end, you'll still also see who actually asked and answered the questions. So you'll see this says keeper bookkeeping for the clients because that setting is enabled, but Ben Stein actually answered or actually asked the question. And so this is another update in the portal. You can see who on your team asked the initial question in the portal. An attendee asked if we have one company that has 11 sub-companies, is there a discount for them? There is not a discount by default for multi-entity companies, but if you have extraneous circumstances or things you want to talk to us about, feel free to shoot us an email and we will see what we can do. Okay. That appears to be all of the questions. So I will give folks maybe another 60 seconds here to ask any last minute questions that have not come to mind, and then we will go ahead and bring this to a close. All right. Well, folks, thank you all so much for joining us today.